Hey everyone, this is Jack from the Cardboard Herald, and today we are talking about my top 10 small box games of all time. You know, the type of games that you're going to bring on vacation or to your Mima's house, or you're going to bring it, I don't know, to the beach to get all sandy and regret why you brought your game, but you don't want to pay for all the sleeves in order to protect it. But even then, the water would have gotten into it and the sand, and it's a mess and everything. You know the types of games that I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and get this kicked off with number 10, Studies in Sorcery by Weird Giraffe Games, a wonderfully themed tableau builder in which you're getting your necromancy on. You're going to school for the dark arts, you know, the sort of forbidden knowledge university shtick come to life in a board game. It's got the phases of the moon for the phases throughout the game. It's got a great system of synergistic possibilities as you get all of your spells together. It's got hidden scoring. It's got the whole package. It feels like a very robust game in a small box, and sealing the deal are the minimalistic kind of hand-drawn looking illustrations on all the different courses, which is just such a great way of really emphasizing the theme, reinforcing it with the mechanics of efficiently trying to navigate your field of study, and making it feel like a complete experience without having to really make any sort of sacrifices. It's charming, it's brilliant, it's spooky, it's fun. Number 9 is Coup, a game that is now legendary. It was an incredibly exciting release when it originally came out, with a lot of buzz surrounding it leading up to its release. The eventual production of it in the sort of cyberpunk resistance universe just had some of the most evocative illustrations out there. And you want to talk about a banger of a game that could be played in, I don't know, 5 minutes around, in which everyone's sitting around the table and you are lying to your friends in what is one of the easiest to pick up social deduction lying games out there. It is unparalleled. There's nothing like Coup, and there's nothing like the experience of knowing that there are only 2 possible dukes in the deck, and the first 3 players say on their turn, well, I get 3 coins with my duke, and the next person says, I get 3 coins with my duke, and then the next person says, I get 3 coins with my duke, and no one's really wanting to call anyone on that, and that's the whole unbeatable shtick of Coup. Number 8 is a newcomer, or rather a re-release of a newcomer that is actually coming on the horizon. So you could go with the older game, you could go with the newer game, and I know this is kind of cheating, but I'm pretty excited by it, which is Isle of Trains All Aboard, a game that I think this newest version really cements the small box nature of the game. All the multi-use of the multi-use cards, which is something that is always welcome to fit a lot of information into a small package, which is what you're going for here, right? You got to use every part of the buffalo if you're going to make something feel robust and complete, yet in this diminutive shape. On top of that, it's an interesting game in its own right by removing the pick up and deliver from a pick up and deliver game. And that's interesting in a train game, which is interesting that train games are a genre and board games in and of themselves instead of just a type of theme. Number 7 is another newcomer, but I am gladly putting on the list. It is the inspiration for this list, and that is Dandelions, a recent import by Board Game Tables, who are releasing more and more interesting and vibrant games. And this is a game that can be explained in about a minute, where up to 3 players are using their 11 dice to just rotate around this wheel. But underneath the beautiful and seemingly pleasant theme of dandelions scattering their seeds is a stone cold area control game. It is interesting, it is fun, and it is cutthroat in a way that makes it more approachable and fun for people who don't typically like cutthroat games. Dandelions is such a pleasant surprise, and for being such a small box, packs such a consistent punch for me. Number 6 is Jaipur, and why wouldn't it be Jaipur? I mean, Jaipur is just the ultimate merchant trading game, camel extravaganza, the sort of minimalism that the game has, in that you can only do just a couple of things. And with that small structure, everything that you do has tremendous impact on your opponent. It's one of the best two-player games out there ever, and it is just such a classy two-player card game that feels timeless and like it's going to be played a million years from now. It's one of those ones that you can teach to anyone, you can bring it anywhere. Jaipur gets a lot of love no matter where in the world I end up taking it. Number 5, how could Love Letter not be on this list? This one gets additional points for being the most minimal of the minimal games that are on here. I think back to the original version in the little cloth bag that you had with the cards in it and just the little cubes for the love tokens, the successful letters. And there's been a million versions of this to date, and the core concept, the core conceit is great. It's one of those games that if you were stuck in a Comic-Con line and you were like, well, I don't know what to do for the next 45 minutes while I wait for Hall H, well, I don't know. The person ahead of me, the person behind me, you're playing Love Letter with me now. Never played a board game before? I'm going to teach you how to play this one in about 30 seconds, and we're going to have a hilarious time and be best friends from now on. Next up is Set a Watch, which is really kind of setting the biggest dimensions that I'm allowing on this small box category. But boy, is it a small box. It's something that easily fits in a backpack, or if you're like me and had them awesome Jinko jeans in the late 90s and early 2000s, it'll easily fit in your back pocket. This is one of the greatest solo games ever. It can be played multiplayer and played cooperatively. The use of the box as a part of the game is such a fantastic tool and great utility in keeping the game itself small and condensed. The visceral thematic immersion that comes from one hero having to actually do the watch and manage the fire and everything, and the fire being what allows you to reveal the levels of enemies that are coming upon you, and the remaining heroes during that round are the ones who are going to have to interact, and then you have to manage the health of your heroes and recover them, and who goes to watch and who doesn't in each of the game's rounds. And that is just a great way to go to have so much content and great adventurous fantasy. Next up, for the biggest of the small box category, is Fort by Leader Games. It is one of the best deck builders that I've played in a long time. It is just something that is immediately charming when you put it on the table and see all the kids that are playing in these fort games across the yards and all the different politics and dynamics that come from children's play. It just feels immediate, it feels inviting, it feels snappy, and it's a game that gives you a surprising amount of strategic leverage that you can play with, even though it feels relatively linear the first couple of times that you play it. Closing in at the finale with number 2, we have Cartographers, and if you look at me, you should be thinking, that's a guy who, as a kid, he read a lot of novels with maps in the front of them, and you would be right. That has shaped my life, the immense immersion in fantasy where I'm constantly referencing the atlases and the appendices and the maps associated with them. It's something I love so much, and I am so thankful that Cartographers is such a good game to back up such a wonderful theme that is underutilized. You're making the fantasy map of this world in what I think is to date the best flip and or roll and write game out there. It's a game I've played a lot throughout the pandemic. It's one that allows you to really lean into your artistic tendencies if you have those, and it's just such a solid spatial arrangement puzzle game on top of all these other interesting and exciting things. And number 1 on this list is kind of a turn from the whole shtick that we've gone through getting here, in that I'm turning away from strategy games for the most part, and I am going to The Light in the Mist by Post Curious, which in this case is using tarot cards to set up these tremendous puzzles, and the tarot cards are multi-use, which may be involved in different episodes of this non-linear mystery that you're solving about the primary character. And as far as I'm concerned, this is Post Curious or Rita Orlov's magnum opus. It completely blew my mind how functional the game was, how concise and yet robust, and how many layers I found within. I've played a lot of narrative mysteries and puzzle games and cooperative adventure problem solving in my time, and this is a game that, even though it's in such a tiny box, is just the apex of my experience with this whole genre. It represents to me that when we're talking about games, size isn't a limitation, it's a constraint, and that constraint can be the basis of creativity. It absolutely is the game that I think has been the most robust experience that I've had in such a small package, and that's why Light in the Mist is number 1. But I want to hear from you. What are your favorite small box games? What scenarios do you play small box games in? Do you reserve them specifically for travel, or do you play with them at home as part of the normal rotation? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting, thanks for being an awesome audience. You know that I have been Jack for the Cardboard Herald.